and we did initial discussion about design center and exchange. So anyone has any doubt on this part? Since we are going to move on management center, and this one will be a bit difficult also. And from architect point of view also, you should know many things here. Okay. So we'll discuss all those things. Before that, anyone has any doubt? Design center and exchange generally you will use as a developer point of view. Then this API manager and runtime manager here. Partially it will be means many things you need to know as a developer point of view, many things you should know as a architect point of view. Okay. But these two are completely for a developer. So now we will go for a bit complex part. We will discuss a bit complex things, what we have on API manager. So hope everyone clear with this too. So let's move on next part. Inside management center, like we do all the management kind of activity related to our server, related to our users. Okay, so there will be, once you will create endpoint platform, you will create for organization and there will be multiple user. So you have to manage those users. You have to give required permission. Then on API manager, you have to register your API. You need to apply all the security policy. Runtime manager, you will deploy your mule application. And you need to select appropriate size of worker. You need to select appropriate number of worker. Okay. And then like a few more properties are there that you need to know. Okay. In API governance, when you will apply this API governance, so what it will do, it will enforce governance rule on your API manager. Let's say as per API governance in RAML, we have lots of things like resource name should be noun, it should be plural. Okay, those kinds of things and those kind of things are there. So once you will enforce API governance, if you're like whatever you are defining throughout your endpoint platform, if that will not follow API governance, then it will give you some kind of warning. Okay. Then visualizer and monitoring, these two are also very important. In visualizer, what we do, like it will give you a list of application. Okay. And those applications are how those applications are connected with each other. So that kind of visualization it will give you. And monitoring, this will give you like tracking of your application. Okay. In many perspective. Okay. So let's see one by one. So let's start with visualizer only. Okay. So in visualizer, once you will go to visualizer, it will ask you to select your environment. Okay. So let's say I want to see for sandbox. Okay. Then it will ask you to select environment. Okay. So this one is sandbox environment. Inside that, using this sandbox, we have created QA, dev, and sandbox. So which one I want? Let's say I'm taking this sandbox. Okay. Now you can see here, it will give you list of application and how they are connected with each other. Okay. So this cyber security UAT is there, which is connecting with this particular endpoint, Azure storage, Salesforce. Then we have external traffic from this particular API. Okay. So here we have external traffic from this API, and internally we are calling this particular URL from this API. Okay. And once you will select any particular, it will give you connectivity from that application. So here I don't have much too many application deployed on this server. Otherwise, for each let's say this particular process API is connected with 2-3 system API. So it will give you that connectivity. Okay, this particular process API is connected with this 3 system API. Then that system API connected with Salesforce database. So it will give you connectivity. Oh, this is connected with Salesforce. This is connected with database. So that kind of connectivity in graphical way you can see from here. And this connectivity will come once you will deploy your mule application. Okay. So for this particular architecture diagram, you don't need to do anything. You just need to register your API and you need to deploy your API. Automatically, your Anypoint platform visualizer will detect those connectivity and it will give you in graphical way. Okay. So here you can see on architecture, like here also we have three perspective, like you want to see on architecture point of view, you want to see on troubleshooting point of view, or you want to see on policies point of view. Okay, so you need to select appropriate. At this moment, let's go with architecture point of view, how systems are connected with each other. So this will give you that particular diagram. As I mentioned, like at this moment, this like I haven't deployed too many applications, so it's giving very limited applications and their connectivity. But hope everyone clear with this, like what this visualizer do. Anyone has any doubt on this part? Okay, if no, then we'll move for monitoring. Okay, this monitoring is very much important. Actually, visualizer very rarely you will use, but monitoring you have to do on regular basis. Okay, so this monitoring will give you a clear picture of your applications. Okay, like how many like RAM is in use, so not RAM, heap memory in use, how much heap memory in use, how much vCore in use, how much time it's taking to respond, then what all external system you are calling for those external system, like what is your response time, everything you will get. So I selected one application. Okay, let me show you again. So how you will go to this particular. So you need to go to monitoring first. And then here built-in dashboard. Actually, you can create your own custom dashboard also. So built-in dashboard, we have some standards thing. So you need to select environment here. So I selected sandbox. You need to select one application from here. Okay, whatever application you will deploy, it will show you all. So let's take this one and click on view. So in this particular dashboard, you will get many things. So first thing is JVM heap used. Okay. So when you deploy your Mule application with 0.1 vCore, so how much size of memory will be there? Heap memory, it will be 500 MB. So you can see this borderline 500 MB. And out of this 500 MB, you can see this is the usage of memory. Okay. So you can see color wise also. If it is below 200, then we are getting green signal. Means our application is in safe mode. If it is yellow, means we are going a bit higher. Okay, so we are coming in warning state. Once it will reach around 400 or 500, then you will get red signal. Like you are consuming your lots of memory. Okay, and you can see here, once I select here, so it's giving me 2, 3 things. So you can see limit also. Limit is 510, and we are using 215 MB. Out of 510 MB, we are using 215 MB. So this is JVM heap used. Then this is the CPU. Okay. So if you know like 0.1 vCore, we have CPU, and then you can see here how much percentage of that CPU we are using. So this particular graph will give you the usage of that CPU. And this customization you can see here, like I did for 7 days. If you want, you can make it for 30 minutes, 1 hour, 1 month, whatever you want. And you can provide custom date also. It's not like you have to select from here. If you want to do analysis for more days, Then you need to select here custom date. Okay. So this is again about system memory, JVM. Okay. This one is also important, thread count. Okay. So this is telling us like how many threads are in use at that particular time. Okay. So you can see here 67 thread in use, 68, 67 like that. That many thread were in use. Okay. So this again gives you like in Mulesoft whenever we do processing. So based on the CPU and memory size, you will get you will get a pool of threads. Okay. And whenever request will come, it will take thread from that pool of thread and it will start its processing. Okay. So here it's giving us how many threads is in use, that count it's giving you. So everyone like okay with this part, like clear with this part. A part of this I selected again for architect point of view infrastructure part. But you can go to our view also, and here you will get more detailed analysis. Okay, so you can see here mule message, how many mule message is coming, then average response time, how much time it's taking to respond. That this is average for each millisecond or second. Let me see. Okay, this is based on the date and time. Okay, and this is the response time in millisecond. Okay, and this is the error response time. Okay, this is inbound total request by response time. This is about the inbound request, and this is both are inbound only. These two are outbound. Okay, and then here again we have CPUs. So as I mentioned in overview, you will get detailed one. And once you will select any particular option like inbound, outbound, you will get related to only inbound, outbound, or infrastructure. And here you can customize the data and all. Okay, in this alert section, you can create alert and you can define some rule to generate alert. But at this moment, we don't have any alert created. So here you are getting new alert option. So you can create alert using this option, and you can define on which basis alert will be created. Okay. So all those things capability we have inside any point monitoring. Hope everyone clear with this visualizer and monitoring. Okay. Now we will go to API manager. So API manager as a developer point of view also, like many people should know this API manager. So can anyone tell me like what is API manager? Anyone has idea? I think in last class also we had some discussion on API manager. Okay, fine. So generally API manager we use to apply security and policy. Okay. So here you can see whenever you want to apply security policy, so first you need to register your API. So that will be first task. Okay. So to register any API on API manager, what you need to do, you need to select this add API option. Okay. And then add new API. And here you need to select from where you want to take that API. So I'm taking from Mule Gateway. Okay. Then it will ask you proxy type. So whenever we apply security policy, either you can apply that on your implementation API. Okay. or you can apply on top of implementation API using proxy API. So what you can do on top of your implementation API, it will create, if you will select this deploy a proxy application, what it will do, it will create one proxy API on top of your Mule API where you have your implementation. Okay. So it has some advantage, it has some disadvantage also. So can anyone you quickly remind me, like, do we like we already do this discussion, or actually I'm taking two classes parallelly, so I'm getting a little bit somewhere I took. So I just want to wait double check. I took in my development class, not in architect. Can anyone confirm me? Okay, fine. Then let me do recap even if I took here. So if you select this particular option, it will create a proxy API on top of your implementation API. So we have few advantage and disadvantage to use proxy API. On advantage point of view, like you are doing all the non-functional requirement like applying security policy, or if you have any other non-functional requirement. So what you are doing, you are not doing all this kind of like you are not applying all this kind of activity on your implementation URL. So what we are doing, we are creating one separate application and we are doing all this non-functional implementation on there. Okay, so what will happen? Your implementation logic will not be impacted due to any of this non-functional implementation. Okay, so it will give you like so your implementation API means as a result, your implementation API will not be impacted in any way by your non-functional requirement where security policy will come. Okay, so this is the advantage, but at the same time, we have some disadvantage also. When you deploy this proxy API on top of your implementation API, it need one additional V code. Okay, since that is also will be a mule application only. So if it need additional V code, then your server infrastructure cost will increase. You know, like 0 0.1 V code itself also has huge charging. Okay, let's say 10,000 USD per year. So 10,000 USD per year for one application, and if that organization has 20 applications, so again it will be huge costing only. So that is the disadvantage, but still many organizations prefer this. Okay, due to some reason. Okay, let's say you have one mule application. So that mule application will be called within your organization also and outside of your organization also. Okay. So within your organization, you don't need any security policy. So that API will be called within your organization. But it may happen that the external system, when they will call, you need to apply security policy. So what you will do, you will create one proxy API on top of that implementation API, and you will give endpoint of proxy API to your external user. Okay. So in this way, without touching your implementation API, you are doing all those non-functional things and you are connecting with your clients. Okay. After that, you need to select this target type. So target type can be Cloud Hub, Hybrid, Runtime Fabric based on the server, what you are using. So we are going to use this Cloud Hub. Okay. And here you need to select runtime version also. So automatically it will take latest one, but you can select previous version also. And as we are creating here proxy application, so it's asking for name of proxy application. But I don't want to go with this proxy. Let's use this one. And then you need to click on next. Okay. Now it will ask you from where you want to select your application like API. So I want to select from Exchange. So then it will search for that API. Okay. So here you can see on Exchange, I have already published my YAML. Okay. So you need to select this particular YAML. Okay. And then here you will get asset type. This automatically it will detect from your YAML file. Okay. API version is this. Asset version latest one is 1.0.4. But we have done previously also we have published. So you will get other publish also. But I want to do it on latest one. And then you need to click on next. Okay. So it will ask you some label on your instance. So you can put anything. Then implementation URL. Okay. Can anyone tell me when you will get implementation URL and where you will get? Anyone has any idea how to get this implementation URL and from where we will get this? It looks everyone on mute if anyone is speaking. Raman, are you saying anything?
So I think you have to match the API ID in your one of the configuration properties. That way you can link it.
No, I'm saying from where I will get this implementation URL.
Oh, this will be from the runtime.
Yes, correct.
You must have exposed the APIs over there. So you might be getting a runtime. In the runtime, you might see a URL. You have to paste it over there. So when you
Yes,
deployed the app from your Anypoint Studio, or even if you took the jar file and you deployed it in the Anypoint in the runtime, you must have got an implementation URL.
correct.
And
So
even if you're using a proxy API, you don't need to link it. It's optional. Yeah, it says optional, right?
yeah, it's optional only, but this implementation URL we will get from Runtime Manager.
Right.
Whenever we are deploying our Mule application, so once your deployment will be completed, this implementation URL will be created and you can copy paste it here. And it's this one is optional, it's not mandatory. So we will not provide this. Okay. So again, this consumer endpoint and other we can keep by default one and we can click on next one. Okay, so it will ask you to validate all these options, whatever you have provided, all are correct or not. And then you can click on this save option. So once you will click on save option, your API will be registered on API Manager. Okay. And as like you remember, we haven't applied this proxy API option. Okay, otherwise one proxy API endpoint also will be created, but we haven't applied that one. So there is no proxy API endpoint. And here you can see on left hand side, we are getting multiple options: alert, contracts, policies, SLA tier, and setting. Okay. Inside alert tab again, you can create your alert. And if you have any existing alert, you can monitor it here. Okay. So here you can see it's asking you to create alert. Once you will create alert, it will ask you some rule. Based on that, your alert will be created. Okay. Then contracts. Okay. So once you will apply client ID enforcement policy. Okay. So at that time, you need to create contracts. Okay. And for each external user, let's say you have like Citibank, you are working in Citibank. Okay. and you have payment API. Okay, so you have payment gateway API. Okay, now that payment gateway will be used by multiple clients. Like you, that Citibank has clients like Airtel. Then they have clients like Reliance. Okay, so wherever like they are means big company or maybe any size company, they want to use this Citibank payment gateway. Okay, so they all will be clients for Citibank. Okay, so after that, no matter from Airtel, what customer is making payment, okay, that API gateway will be called through Airtel only. Okay, so that request will go from Airtel. So for this particular Airtel client, no matter which customer is consuming that API, you want to create one contract. Okay, like whenever you will call my API, you have to pass this client ID and client secret for security purpose. Okay. So here, whenever you will create any, whenever you will apply client ID enforcement policy, and you will create one client ID and client secret, one contract will be created. And those details you will able to see in this particular tab. And after that, we have policies tab. Okay. So here, like you can apply almost like 16 out of box policies are there. So you can apply any one of them. So for this policy, like we will have one separate class. Okay, maybe tomorrow or next week. Sorry, not tomorrow, maybe next week. So we will discuss about each policy in very detail. Okay, especially about OAuth and JWT token one. So many people I know like they have confusion how these two policy differ from each other. So all those kind of discussion we will do. And many people like have confusion on which scenario we should use JWT, on which scenario we should use OAuth. So that also we will discuss. But here we have almost 16 out of box policies. So that policies you can apply in that particular policies tab. So after coming there, you need to select any one policy. Let's say I want to do basic auth and simple one. Okay. Here you can see basic auth LDAP also is there and simple also there. In simple, in API manager itself, we do validation of client user ID and password. But in LDAP server will use to validate user ID and password. Okay. Then you need to click on next. Next, as I mentioned, like here we are just seeing this policy tab. All the policy detailed discussion we will do in next session. So here you need to provide user ID and password, and then you need to click on apply. Okay, before applying, here also in advanced tab, you can see latest version of policy, and you are getting two option here. You want to apply this policy for all method, or you want to apply policy for any particular method. If you will select here this option, then it will ask you a regular expression for URL. For what all you need to select method also, and you need to select regular expression for your resource. If your resource is fixed one only, then simply give the resource detail here. And if you want to apply for multiple resources with get method or any method, then you need to give a regular expression. And once you will define that and click on apply, click on apply, then it will apply this policy. This policy. Okay. Once you will register your API and you apply this policy. Okay, let's go back. So here you can see this auto discovery ID or instance ID. This auto discovery ID or instance ID will help API manager to communicate with runtime manager. Okay. So this will help you to communicate API manager to runtime manager. So this auto discovery ID you need to configure in your Mule application before deploying this Mule application. So in Mule application, we have one tab. Okay, not tab, you can say configuration global element. Okay, inside global element, you have to select configuration API auto discovery, and there you need to put this particular value. Okay, so once you will configure that and you will deploy your application on Mule application, so that policy will be configured in that Mule API. Like then whenever someone will make a request to your Mule application, first it will go to API manager. It will check based on this API auto discovery ID. It will search the appropriate API manager instance, and then it will check what all policies are there with that instance. So all those policy will be verified on API manager. Okay, this part, okay, let me explain through one diagram also. So which will give you more clear picture. So first thing, we will have this is our API gateway. Okay, whenever request will come to API gateway, here we will have API manager. Okay, and then here we will have runtime manager. So whenever request will come to API gateway, okay, so it will check what like that particular transaction, like whatever transaction is coming. So for that API is registered on API manager or not. So once it will validate API is registered, then request will go to API manager. Okay. On API manager, it will check all the security policy. If all good, then it will send success response here. And next, this request will go to runtime manager. If it will find that security policy is not valid, then it will send error message 401 unauthorized. Okay. Once it will receive unauthorized, it will send error response to calling system. Okay. And this runtime manager will not be called. So whenever request will come, it will go to API manager first. It will check all the security policy. If all good, then it will send success and it will go to runtime manager. If error, then it will return back to calling system. Okay, so this is how this transaction works. Now, if you have proxy API, okay, so proxy API will come in between the API gateway and runtime manager. So this will be your proxy API. So first request will go to proxy API, and then it will go to implementation API. Okay, and many times we use proxy API. So let's say you have some Java application or Node.js application, and you want to use API gateway to apply security policy. So you don't want like external user will call your Node.js API directly. So you want some gateway which where you can apply security policy, where you can use their dashboard to monitor your application. So in that case also, we register our API, okay, and we select this proxy option. Then what it will do, it will create one proxy API. And whenever someone want to call Node.js, they will call that proxy API. And that request will go through that proxy API. So inside your proxy application, what you need to do? So once it will deploy on runtime, like once you will select this proxy, once you will register your proxy API, and one proxy application will be deployed on runtime manager. You need to export that one. Then what you need to do? Inside that, you need to configure HTTP requester. Other things will be created automatically. You need to configure HTTP requester, and inside HTTP requester, you need to configure that Node.js endpoint, which user want to make a call, and that call will go through our proxy API. Okay. So inside that proxy application, you need to use HTTP requester to call that Node.js API. Okay. So in this way, this proxy API help us to use Mule API gateway, okay, to consume non-Mule application from through Mule gateway. Okay, means I have seen very limited project, but yeah, some places I have seen projects are using API gateway and they need Mule application there. Means not Mule application, Mule proxy application to call their Node.js API through Mule gateway. Okay, so in this way, you can apply security policy here. And then once you will apply multiple security policies, so we will so soon, like we will say soon. So in that, you can put the hierarchy also, which policy will be applied first, which policy will be validated first. So that kind of settings we can do. So in API manager, mostly we do this kind of configuration. You can export API, delete API, what you have created. So we can delete this API. We can export also. Okay. You can depreciate, like you can go with lower version. Okay. And then once you will click on change API spec, you will redirect to Anypoint Exchange. And here also you can see once we select API manager, like you use directly, you don't need to go to start everything. You need to check your server also. You are pointing to correct server or not. So we have created sandbox environment, dev, production. Actually, this one is valid. So what all servers or what all environment you want. So you can select proper environment and you need to configure this. You need to register on your API manager. Okay. And for example, you have registered all these things. You have registered your API on API manager and you want you have applied security policy on one layer, one server only. Let's say we did just now we did for sandbox and I want to promote all this on production. So how you will do this? So first you need to promote means similar kind of thing will be duplicated in another environment. So what you will do, let's say this one is production one. Go there and then here you will get promote API environment. So if you will select this particular option, then what it will do, it will allow you to promote all those properties what we have created from one environment to another environment. Let's say we want to move it everything from sandbox to production. Okay. So here you need to select promote API from environment, and then it will ask you from which environment. I want from sandbox. For which API? API version, instance level. So all those things you need to do. And then it will ask you what all things you want to promote. Only policy with SLA and policy with SLA and alert. So based on your need, you need to promote this and then click on promote. So what it will do, whatever security policy you have applied there, all security policy will applied on production also. Okay. So like to make your task easy, you can promote API manager thing from one environment to another. Okay, before runtime manager, let's take 10-minute break. Okay, so then we will discuss about runtime manager and we will start for access management. So today we will complete these two, runtime manager and access management. And then another complex part will be on this API manager. That will be our discussion of this VPC, VPN, and load balancer. Okay, those things will be important. But before that, first we will discuss runtime manager, API management, and then we will go for load balancer, VPC, and VPN. Okay, before that, let's take 10-minute break and we'll start in 10 minutes.